Like many of you, we battled depression during life's ups and downs.
Music has always been the one thing that we could rely on to get us through the tough times that we all face.
Follow us on our journey as we discuss the healing power of music,
Interview bands,
break down genres,
review band biographies,
and more.
This is the When Words Fail
Music Speaks podcast
with Blake Mosley
and James Cox.
Everybody, welcome to When Words Fail, Music Speaks. My name is Blake. I'm joined today by James Cox. James Cox, how you doing today, sir?
Hey, how you doing, man?
Wonderful, wonderful. Awesome. So today we are joined by yet another special guest on the show. For anybody who's a fan of the paranormal, of true crime, horror stories, anything like that, this is a great podcast. Not our podcast. This podcast we're about to talk about.
Yours is great too.
Yeah.
This is pretty good.
We haven't gotten into too many paranormal things on here, and in true crime, but trust me, that's definitely, we're definitely big fans of that. But today we're joined by Darren Marler. Just to say a little bit about you, here, Darren. This is taken directly from your website, by the way.
You believed that bunch of lies, huh?
Oh,
nice.
It was the most well-written thing I've ever come across, and I was like, "Oh, God, this is it." Copy.
I hired a top fiction writer to come up with that for me.
Okay.
So that's what it was. Okay.
Nice. All right, go ahead then.
Well, so professional voice artist Darren Marler brings true stories of the paranormal, supernatural, legends, lore, crime, conspiracy, mysterious, macabre, unsolved, and unexplained 7 days a week in the award-winning podcast Weird Darkness. Weird Darkness has been compared to Coast to Coast with Art Bell, The Twilight Zone with Rod Serling, Unsolved Mysteries with Robert Stack, and In Search of with Leonard Nimoy, and others. Along with radio and acting, Darren Marler is well known as a professional full-time voiceover artist. He's been providing quality audio recordings to clients around the world. If his voice sounds familiar, it is due to having voiced thousands of radio commercials, TV spots, movie trailers, videos, podcasts, audiobooks, corporate presentations, phone prompts, audio theater projects, video games, and more. It doesn't just stop there. Darren Marler has been named one of the best storytellers in podcasting for 2019 by Podcast Business Journal, and in 2014 was awarded the Excellence in Broadcasting Award by the Pennsylvania Association of Broadcasters for his commercial voice.
This is embarrassing.
I'm just gushing a little bit.
Yeah, I don't mind putting it on the website, but when somebody reads it right back to me, it's like, oh my God.
No, just soak it in. Just soak it in. This is amazing. I wish people had this all this nice stuff to say about me. But not only is Darren a master at bringing the paranormal to your podcast feeds on a daily basis, he is a big advocate for suicide prevention and mental health. His website offers multiple resources for those struggling with depression or suicidal thoughts. Now, bolt your doors, lock your windows, turn off your lights, and come with us as we interview Darren Marler from the Weird Darkness podcast. Thank you so much for
I am so glad you're recording this. I'm going to take that and make that a ringtone. That was awesome. Yes. The whole thing. Granted, if you want to talk to me and call, you're going to have to wait through like 30 rings, but I'm going to let the whole thing.
You're going to have to do it. They're going to have to wait 3 minutes and 47 seconds to get to you.
Dag nabbit, I need to get my ego boost every day. So somebody call me. That's great. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
There you go. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Absolutely. Yeah. James, I turned James onto your podcast not too long ago. I've been listening for years. My wife and I really got into Weird Darkness shortly after we started dating, and it just kind of like stayed in our feeds. You know, I subscribe to billions of podcasts, it feels like, and there's some that you just feel like I don't know, you lose interest or just whatever, and then you just unsubscribe from them.
Sure.
I've never once thought about unsubscribing from Weird Darkness. I love the daily uploads, and I just never get tired of listening to you. So
thank you, Blake. I appreciate that. And give your wife a huge hug for me then. That's very sweet. To know that you guys actually started you were dating. You're married now, right? Is that what you said?
Married now. Yep.
You're married now, but you were dating when you started listening?
Yes.
So I have a little something to do with your marriage. So that's pretty good. Good or bad. It depends on, I guess talking to her, she might say, oh, that was a bad thing, but
not at all.
But yeah, I love it. I get so many people who say that they actually do listen with a partner. you know, with a spouse. And I've never really seen podcasts that way. I always picture it as some guy with like maybe earbuds driving in a car by themselves or something. But there are, you're right, just like what you and your bride did. They get together and they'll actually set down a time saying, hey, tomorrow night, 7 p.m. let's listen to Weird Darkness together. Right. It's so weird to hear that. It's so cool too.
Yeah.
It's also a huge responsibility. I got to be careful what I say with, with listening together like that, and you know what I have to say about relationships and stuff like that. So that's cool. That. It's really great to hear that. And so now James is listening too. So
yeah,
I am.
Got James hooked. I've always been a huge fan of the not only Weird Darkness, but whenever you had Daily Dose of Weird News, I really enjoyed that.
You've been stalking me, dude.
Wow. Stalker.
That was yeah. I gave up the Daily Dose of Weird News like 2 years ago because I just couldn't keep up with it.
Yeah, I can imagine that.
Wow.
Be a lot.
So yeah, you've been around for a while. That's great.
For a while, Church of the Undead was cool. I really enjoyed that. I really enjoyed Spooky Santa. That's really fun. I look forward to that now. It's awesome. Yeah, I'm really a big fan of yours, Darren. So
you obviously are. When we're done here, I got to send you a shirt.
Oh no,
you don't have one. Yeah, man. Both of you. But man, Blake deserves like a proud to be a weirdo shirt.
Yeah. He does.
That's awesome.
Definitely a weirdo.
That's awesome.
So Darren, this podcast is based around music and depression because what we do here on When Words Fail is we talk about music and how it helps people who are struggling for depression. Mm-hmm. And we're really honored with you to have you on because you like said in the intro, you're a big advocate for suicide prevention and mental health. But we gotta know, man. This is a music podcast, so do you play any kind of instruments?
No, I don't. But I actually grew up singing a lot. I was actually pursuing a career as a singer. Yeah. In fact, one of these days I'm going to have to just release some of the stuff that I've recorded. But I went to Nashville. I ended up recording a song there at a record company, and I really did wanted to do that for a career. And I discovered radio at about the same time, and the two really meshed really well together for a while. But it's a long story, but I'm just going to say I was doing Christian music. Actually, I was a Christian rock was my thing. I had gotten saved back in the early 90s, and so I was writing a whole bunch of stuff about Jesus, how much I loved God, all that other stuff, and I still do. But I started going out and actually performing at different churches for youth groups and stuff like that. And somehow the phone just died one day. Nobody would ring anymore. And I truly think it was God, because my ego was starting to get just a little out of whack. Yeah. That I started thinking that I was, God's gift to God. I mean, I started thinking more and more about what I sounded like, what I looked like, rather than what I was there to do. Right. And after a while, I actually lost my singing voice. I do not have the voice that I used to have. On the plus side, though, I'm doing what I do now, with a voice that I did not have 10 years ago. And so nowadays I'm doing, like you mentioned in the intro, the voice, all the voiceover stuff, like movie trailers and stuff like that. My voice wasn't this low way back when. I was a low tenor. Now you'd probably say that I'm a low baritone, I guess. So. Yeah,
because it sounds like you have a very rich bass voice,
Yeah,
but it also works for radio too, because you have the pristine radio voice that many people would love to have. So I'm serious, because
that's what started.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah. Music has been a huge thing for me all my life. So it's cool that you guys are actually combining the two. That you're talking about mental illness, right, or mental wellness, and music at the same time, because music is such a powerful thing in most people's lives.
Yes, it is.
No matter what style you normally gravitate towards. I mean, you can gravitate towards the blues, and just the name of the blues makes it sound like you're going to be depressed, but people get lifted up when listening to the blues. I love the blues.
Yeah, it's right. Awesome.
Yeah. So it's great that you guys are doing that. So, but yeah, I don't really have any instrument behind me. I used to play a keyboard a little bit, but that was just by ear, and I was really terrible at it. So it was mostly just the singing voice and leading bands and doing solo stuff for a while until that stopped.
Nice.
Well, these are not mine. Just so you know, these right here on the wall, these are my wife's. I'm a drummer, so it's not really cool to hang your drums up on the wall. So
no, well, it's hard. It's harder to. It's harder to play the drums when you're hanging up. Well, I guess Dory Jordanson does that spinner.
But upside down. And Tommy Lee from Motley Crue.
Get a drum set that spins all the way around like that. Yeah,
that's awesome.
That for sure. That's in the
you're saving up for that. Right? You use the money you make from the podcast to buy that, right?
Yes, sir.
Because you're now independently wealthy from doing a podcast.
Exactly.
Yes,
as we all are.
Yeah, we're all just quitting jobs and just doing this for a living now. So
that's right.
That's how COVID's been. No, I don't have this question on the notes here, James, but I thought about this while we were talking. Do you have like a favorite singer? Do you have a favorite artist of any kind, like a favorite or anything?
Nowadays, not so much. When I grew up, it's interesting that you did not have this on your list. When I grew up, as early as like 4 years old, I was the biggest Elvis fan ever.
Right.
To the point that I would go through in grade school, I ended up doing an Elvis act. And I would actually put on my collared shirt and flip it up, and I'd put in an 8-track tape of Elvis, Aloha from Hawaii, and I would walk into my kindergarten room and pretend that I was Elvis doing the lip syncing and everything for the first couple songs. After that, I ended up going into some recording studios and actually recording a few Elvis songs. Cool. I mourned his death 12 years after it happened. Because I didn't really, I was too young to understand when it actually happened. But much later, when I'd fallen in love with his music, I found myself just crying one day because I loved his music so much.
Right.
So I guess you could say that I was a huge Elvis fan. Was I hit high school? Steve Perry from Journey was, and I think that's one of the reasons that my voice is no longer what it is, because I kept trying to sing like Steve Perry. And you can't do that when you are when you're a baritone or a low tenor. You can't do that. I did, and now I've paid for it. But I absolutely loved. I loved his voice. And Ken Tamplin. If you're into Christian music at all, Ken Tamplin is into. He was rock metal in the 90s, and his voice is just incredible. He's to the point now that he actually has a YouTube channel where he helps people to learn to sing better. I think it's Ken Tamplin Academy or something like that. If you wanted to look him up, and just to get a sample of what he sounds like, I think he's probably still my favorite singer of all time. Just when it comes to the vocal quality, as an entertainer, you can't beat Elvis.
No, yeah,
so,
absolutely,
yeah,
100%. And in merchandise.
Yeah, exactly. I know, really. I know.
Yeah. Followed by the Misfits, they're right there, but Elvis merchandise, that's where it's at. James, do you want to take that next? I'm sorry, I threw all the notes off because I was like, oh, that's a good question. I should ask that.
Yeah, that's right. So, like we said before, this is dealing with depression. So your podcast is great for people who are dealing with depression. So what was that your intention when you started your Weird Darkness podcast?
Not at all.
Okay.
Not at all. I had, even though I was one who suffered from depression, I never had any inklings of bringing anything other than storytelling to the podcast. It just wasn't really in my wheelhouse. But the content of what I do is so dark sometimes. And I was getting to the point now, some of the stories that I had to back off because they were too dark, even for me, just telling the stories. Okay. And I realized, even though it wasn't affecting me in a negative way, I knew that kind of material possibly could, especially if a story ended up talking about how somebody took their life or something like that. And I realized there's a responsibility that I have. I need to make sure that if I am going to bring up that topic, there has to be somewhere that somebody can reach out and say, hey, I need help with that. And I know that's not me. I have no training whatsoever when it comes to counseling or medicine or anything like that. I'm just a guy who cares, and I want to make sure that everybody's okay. So I started looking. Originally, I just put in a link and the information for the suicide prevention line, which most people know about.
Sure.
And that was just that was just enough for me in the beginning. But I realized after doing that, I ended up getting some emails from people who say that they suffer from depression, and they just really appreciated that, even just being there in the podcast at all for them. Well, I do so. I've never had suicidal thoughts. I've never gone that far, thank goodness. Right. But I have had depression all my life. And that's something that I thought, I wonder if people who have depression are drawn to this type of material. Maybe people who have dark personalities, that they obviously like horror movies. Maybe the sad personalities kind of do as well. Maybe that's the reason that I kind of got into it as well. So just, again, out of my own self-preservation, I think more than anything else, I went looking for an organization online that specifically dealt with depression. And I could not find anything out there. And it made me so angry. Suicide and bipolar, everything else, yes, mental illness in general, but there was nothing specifically for depression that I could find until one day I stumbled upon IFRED, right, which is the International Foundation for Research and Education of Depression, IFRED for short. Thank goodness they came up with something for short, because I would never be able to say that in every single podcast. But I went to them, and I found out they had a lot of resources for people who do deal with depression. So I started putting that into the podcast just at the end, saying, hey, if you need help. And that's when the emails poured in. I get probably, I'd say, a dozen every month at least. Well, probably closer to a couple of dozen of emails every month from somebody saying how much they appreciate my bringing that to attention, because so many people don't even want to talk about depression. Some people are thanking me for having the resources because they know somebody who has depression and they want to be able to tell them where they can go. I've had a lot of people say, hey, I've turned on my friend who has depression to your podcast, and they really like it. And so I know that at that point, they're getting the information on a regular basis. So now I actually feel there's a responsibility to continue that. Not that I would ever stop now. I think it's too important now. It's almost become, I was telling my wife about this a couple of months ago. It almost feels like it's a ministry now, even though it's not. It's just, you kind of have that responsibility. You know, people are listening, you know that they're hurting. And I want to be able to help. I want to entertain them. That's my main goal. But towards the end of the episode, I want to make sure that that they're leaving better than they came. Sure. If that mentally. But that was not my original intent. My original intent was just being a voice artist, thinking, hey, I wonder what it would be like to do this kind of podcast, since I was doing everything else, like the Daily Dose of Weird News every day. That was just something else entertaining that I could just jump into, not knowing that it was going to explode and become its own entity like it has. Right.
Well, I really, really, really have to thank you so much for that, because I find odd that many people can't and don't talk about depression, even though that it's a big deal, So
it is. And I don't know why that is. We'll go to somebody, we'll talk about testicular cancer before we talk about having depression.
Yeah.
And I don't know what is so scary about bringing that up. If you're somebody you feel like you're on the verge of tears all day long, and there's really no reason to be, there's something wrong there. Yeah. Right. It's either spiritually or mentally, maybe it's in the enzymes. Something is causing that, and it needs to be addressed. If you can't roll out of bed each day just because you have no energy whatsoever, you feel like you just don't have a care in the world, or you don't care about the world, that is, you need to look into it. And it's a struggle for all of us who deal with depression. It's a struggle every day. Right. But I am fortunate in the fact that I actually know what I have. And I was able to go to a doctor and get diagnosed officially, right, and get the help that I needed. And so many people just don't do that. Yeah. And I see those people now. I didn't, when I had depression, I didn't see them because I was so engrossed in my own darkness and, oh, my life sucks type of thing.
Right.
But now I can look back on high school, and I can see what I was doing back then because of my depression that I just didn't know at the time. And I can look back on people now from high school going, that person probably has it too,
Right.
or had it. And so it's a little bit easier to identify. If you know somebody well enough, if they're a friend or a family member, you can see that there's a change that takes place.
Right.
Something's going on. And instead of just letting them wallow in it, just reach out and say, hey, is everything okay? Is there anything I can do for you? Sounds like you might be depressed. We probably need to find a different word other than depressed, because that just sounds, oh, I'm sad.
Right.
And that's not what it is. And I think maybe that's one of the reasons people don't talk about it, is because, well, I don't know why I'm sad. It doesn't make any sense to be sad. They're going to think I'm crazy. So I'm not even going to say anything. I wish we could come up with a different term other than depressed. But that being said, if you see somebody going through it, let them know there is help out there.
Sure.
Right.
And that's just what I'm trying to do, is just have that page there at all times. And so if you ever need help, there's for this, there's for suicide prevention. I've added something there, and for those who need to quit drinking. You know, it's just, there are so many things that we all have to work on. But
yeah.
Yeah, because I think that I think that the majority of why people don't want to speak, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, is that if I say to you or Blake, you know, I'm depressed, I don't want to do nothing to do, they will like blow you up. You're not depressed. You're going through, you know, it's just a fun moment.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, then just go watch a funny movie. Then you'll be fine.
Yeah, you'll be all right. It's okay. And I'm like, oh my god, you got to be kidding me, man.
Yeah.
But I think that's the nucleus of why people don't want to talk about it much, is because they're not taken seriously as they should be. You know.
Right. It's not taken seriously.
Right.
You're right. And also, people just don't understand unless they've been through it.
Right.
So it's really hard to console somebody who's dealing with it if you're not there. My bride and I have been married now for 26 years, and I love her more than I did the day I married her, and vice versa. And I've had depression the entire time, and she still doesn't understand it.
No.
She will still once in a while, and she means well, and I love her for it. But if I'm having a hard day, is there anything I can do for you? You know, you want to sit down and watch a movie or something? You know, can I order you a pizza? Which I'll usually take her up on, but that has nothing to do with depression.
Everybody loves pizza. Come on now.
Right, yeah, but she wants to help, but she doesn't know how.
Right.
And I don't think that there really isn't any way that she can. And I think that's part of the reason why people don't talk about it more, is because they don't know how to help somebody that's dealing with it. They don't know how to deal with that person either, because sometimes we're hard to communicate with when we're in that.
Yeah.
We just don't want to talk to anybody. And that's of course the time that we need to talk to somebody, but we don't.
Well, sometimes, like myself, I can't tell people how I feel at that moment, because it's so hard for me to reach down deep in my soul and bring it out. You know,
right?
So that's why, like, many people don't want to talk about it, because they don't know how to express themselves about depression. You know.
Yeah, it is tough.
Yeah,
we've had days where I've we've been scheduled to record something, and I'll just tell James, hey, man, I don't think I have it in me today. I don't know, and this is something that I've dealt with for years, thinking back on it now. And I and I've never been to a doctor. I've never been officially diagnosed with it. But, I was going through a rough time. And my brother-in-law was like, hey, do you want to get together? We'll go to Buffalo Wild Wings. We'll just eat and let's talk. Let's see what's going on. So sat down and I just kind of spilled it. And I was like, I'm feeling this way about this, yada, yada, yada. Self-deprecation out the wazoo, everything I could name about myself was something I hated. And the list goes on. Right.
Right.
And so this is a guy that's, my brother-in-law, Brian, he's been not only like more than just a brother-in-law, like a brother. He's been there since I was 10 years old. He kind of saw me grow up, and was there when my dad died, and he was there for that whole thing, and just the progression of me, like, relationships that I've had that have, gone up and downhill, and just, he's watched me grow. And so we sat down, we had this conversation, and he was like, and I was like, I don't know what to do. And he's like, I think you may be depressed. I was like, me? No, I don't.
I'm not gonna.
Because, and it's not like that could never be me. It was more like, that's a serious thing, and I don't want to say that if I'm just bummed out.
Right.
Like, no, I know you. I've been watching you act like this for a number of years. I really think you are, and I think you should go see somebody. And he's familiar with it. He's got PTSD. He's got a touch of depression and all kind of things like that. So he knows what to look for.
Right.
And since then, that has caused me to be a little bit more. We've been doing this for what, like a year now, James?
Yeah, a year since February of last year. So yeah,
Right.
Yeah.
So we're big advocates for this too, as well, and it kind of helps me with keeping my eyes open if anybody is talking to me, and I'm like, I don't know, man. Should I say something like that, or should I just tell them I'm here? Hey, man, I'm praying for you. What have you?
Yeah.
But
it takes a little bravery to step forward and
Sure.
and ask that person too,
right.
because in a way you're opening yourself up too. You have no idea how that person's going to respond. And it might be, and if they are asking for help and do need help, if you're the one that asked them, suddenly you feel you're the one that's going to have to help get that for them.
Right.
So I'm guessing you've had numerous conversations with your friends since then, and with him asking you how you doing. Have you seen anybody? Have you talked to anybody? Because he cares. He loves you. And I think that's awesome, by the way. Your friend, yeah. I think, because there are so few friends who would really do that.
Oh, yeah.
So you're a very lucky man to have a friend that does that.
Absolutely. James too. He's the same way. He checks in on me, and I'll check in on him. And
because
we just have days.
Yeah, because every time we have a podcast schedule, we check in with each other before we start the show. How you doing? Right? And sometimes whenever he's like, I can't do it today, maybe tomorrow. Throughout that day, that they tell me, I'm like, hey man, you doing all right? And he's like, yeah, man, I'm fine. I just had this situation going on.
Yeah.
So it's always good to check up on friends. Yeah.
Yeah, you just can't. It's not in you. You just
no
matter what.
I can't tell you how many times. I mean, the website said I upload 7 days a week. That's assuming I feel like it.
Right.
Yeah. I can't tell you how many times I've either I've had a migraine, which I do get quite a bit, but also depression can trigger migraines too. So that's actually part of it.
Yes, sir.
But there have been days that I just don't feel it.
Right.
You know what? I love my job. That's the hardest part about this. I absolutely love what I do.
Sure.
I have, I started in broadcasting 30 years ago and I haven't stopped. So, I mean, you have to like what you're doing if you've been doing it for that long.
True.
But there are days that I just cannot think of anything that I would want to do less than step in front of this microphone and tell a story to entertain somebody.
Right.
And there's no reason for it except for the depression. Yeah. So I'm curious, and I'd hate to turn it right back around on you, Blake, but you said you haven't been clinically diagnosed. Have you actually gone to a doctor to talk about it?
I have not. And it's just.
You wuss.
I know. It's really, no, it's hard to make that call,
It is.
It really is. And it's something that I feel like is not a crippling thing, if that's the best way to put it. Like it's not something that is ongoing every day, and it's a struggle every day. I've never had suicidal thoughts. Now I have gone through a period years ago. I wouldn't consider it suicidal thoughts, but I really didn't care if I was alive or dead.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what that was. I didn't want people to worry. I didn't want people to think, hey, y'all need to keep an eye on Blake. Like, no,
right. Yeah. You don't need to be on suicide watch or anything. It's just
I didn't care, man. I just didn't care about whether I was here or
apathetic about everything.
Right. And now that's different. That's not really the case anymore. I feel like I have something to live for. I do feel like people would miss me if I was gone. I feel like
I would.
Well, yeah, definitely. Yeah, you got James who loves you. You got your bride that. And they're a great support group for you too.
Sure.
So before, when you were going through that whole apathy, phase, you probably didn't have anybody that you were leaning on or that was leaning on you. And because that sometimes that helps too, is if being depressed, if you know that you're needed, that can also kind of kick you into gear. It may not make you feel good at the moment, but it gets you out of bed to go help that person, or gets you out of the house because you know you need to go do this thing for that person. At least it keeps you alive.
Right.
You know, it keeps you moving forward.
Absolutely.
So yeah, you've got a great situation now, in the fact that you've got at least 2 friends. You know, got James and your other guy who's checking in on you on a regular basis. You've got a wife who loves you and is continually supporting you. So that's great. So James, you obviously have Blake,
right?
Is that do you have any more of a support group?
I have my mom and dad. Okay, so my mom can see me having like going through some changes, because depression runs deep in my mom's side. You know, and she could tell that I wasn't myself, you know, because when I was a kid, I used to run around, and even though I'm handicapped with CP, you know, I could do most things that the other kids could do, you know. But when I hit my late teens, early 20s, I started falling in the depression, and I had no idea what it was.
Right.
So my mom says, "Okay, well, you know, like just like here, you know, if she's like, I see something in you that's not, I don't like that, you know." So she kind of talked me into going to the doctor and prescribed me some medication, and some days are harder for me even with the medication.
Oh yeah.
But the medication kind of levels it out, you know. So
yeah, I'm on a couple of medications, but there are still days where it just creeps up and it's just that much worse than usual. Right. I can't imagine what life would be like without the meds. I can't imagine how my wife put up with me before the meds. She is an angel to live through that and to get me to where I am now. So I'm glad you both have that support system though. That's great. That's something that if you don't have it, that's where these resources that I tell people about, that's somewhere to at least get started. That's another reason, by the way, that I created the Weirdos Facebook group, because people do need to just connect with somebody real quick. Granted, people are throwing memes up there and having a lot of fun, and that's what it's for.
Right.
But the reason that I actually started the group is because I wanted there to be somewhere that you could just reach out and say, "Hey guys, you know what? I'm having a hard day. You know, or this day really sucks," and somebody will just come right back under it. Go, "You know what? We're here for you. You know, we're praying for you." Or, "Hey, here's a funny meme that maybe will brighten your day." And you don't know these people, but still, it's a semblance of a support group, I guess.
Right.
But that along with the resources that you can find online, like I've read, the 7 Cups app that's on the website. 7 Cups does a lot of great stuff. By the way, if you guys have never checked it out, it's a free app. You just download to your phone, but they also have the website, 7cups.com. And there's always somebody there to talk to. Somebody that's either dealing with it like you are, or there's a trained counselor there who has been through it. They know what it's like, and they've actually been trained to help you. But there are so many different directions to go in there. There's talk groups and stuff like that. And some people, that's what you need sometimes, is just you need somebody to talk to.
Sure. Yeah, it's a nice thing to see. You know, I'm a part of the Weirdos Facebook group, and naturally, and I see the memes, and I do think it's funny. But every now and then, I see those posts and the support that everybody puts into it. With, "Hey man, like, yeah, let's talk about it," or, you know, if you don't want to go into detail, we're thinking about you, we're praying for you, and it's just cool. The community is just really, really cool. And I'm thankful for it. I'm thankful that you offer something like that.
Well, you're very welcome, and I benefit from it as well. Because once in a while, I'll post on there. Just for example, as I was saying earlier, some days I just don't feel it. I'm not going to put out an episode. I try to let people know if I'm not going to put out an episode, so they're not expecting it. I know that the entire world isn't in the Facebook group and isn't following me and going to know, but those are my core people. Those are the ones who listen the most, like my fans, the people who love me the most, I guess, for lack of better words.
Right.
So I want to tell them, and numerous times when that's happened, not only do they comment saying, "Hey, that's okay. You know what? You need to take a day off. You need, take a day for you. We're always going to be here for you." I've had people personally message me, and there's a couple people now. They know who they are, they once a week or so just say, "Hey, how's it going, man? How you doing?" I don't know these people.
Right.
I've never met them. I have no idea what they look like, assuming their profile pics are, are accurate. I don't know,
You never know.
but they care to the point that they actually reached out and said, "Hey, I feel you. I've been there. I know what it's like. How are you doing today?" They know they can't really do anything about it, but they want me to know that they're there just so I can talk to them. And sometimes that's all you need.
Hmm. Yeah, that's a really special thing. I'm very thankful for that whole group, and it's so cool just to see the flip side of it.
Mhm.
So when was it that you first realized that you were struggling with depression?
Uh, it's been so constant through my life. It's really hard to, well, all right. There was one incident that was I guess the straw that broke the camel's back.
Mm.
And I don't know what brought it on, but I was in our family room, sitting on the couch, talking to my wife, and suddenly I just started crying. I haven't cried in decades. Um, not even not even at bad news of family members or whatever. I don't cry. This was just waterfalls of tears coming from me. I couldn't stop crying, and all I was saying is, I don't want to lose you. I don't want to lose you. I didn't do anything to have that thought be realistic in any way.
Sure.
And yet that's where my mind went. And that's when we knew something was definitely wrong. And we got into a doctor the next week. And I mean, the doctor could tell right from like a 10-minute conversation. He said, "Oh yeah, okay, this is what's going on with you." And started getting me help. And of course, it took a while, it took a year or so to figure out what medications worked best. And we still, to this day, many years later, we'll still try something new if something could be better, or because you can grow in and out of it too. As you age, you can either grow out of depression or you can grow into depression. We all change as we get older, and our chemistry changes. And so sometimes we have to just kind of try out the drugs. But I think that's when that has to be the catalyst of getting the help. I'd had issues with it before. I remember there were days at the radio station that I was working for here that I would quit an hour early off the air. I would just, I had a whole bunch of like backup recordings of like, it's the best of Marler in the morning. And I would just throw those in for the last hour because I just didn't have the energy anymore. And I started doing that more and more and more, to the point that I was almost to the point of, hey, can I just start knocking off an hour early every day? Because I just didn't have the energy for it anymore.
Yeah.
And yeah, I see myself in a lot of ways. Now, looking back on it, I can see that it was affecting me. But yeah, I think the crying and the I don't want to lose you, I think that was the final nail.
Final thought, yeah. 'Cause that's pretty powerful because I had no idea that I had depression, and if it wasn't for my mom, who who knows where I'll be right now. And I'm sure Blake has a similar story to that.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah, it's really sad because my dad suffers from it too, but we didn't know about his either. He never did get help. He's fine. Yeah, he actually eventually grew out of it, and he seems to be in a much better place now. But he dealt with depression when I was a young man into my teen years. He admitted to me later on that after when I finally came forward to him and told him that I deal with depression. I don't even remember how that conversation got started, but once I told him, he then opened up and said, "You know what? That runs in the family. I've had it too." And I think his dad did as well. I'm not sure about that, but again, there is. We were just talking about it a little bit ago. How nobody wants to talk about it. I had my own dad in the very same house under the same roof, and he wasn't talking to me, and I wasn't talking to him. We could so easily have been lifting each other up,
Right.
we known, but nobody wants to talk about it.
Right.
Yeah, fathers are odd thing to be. Well, my dad is a retired colonel, so I guess the military, messed with his mind and like him growing up. So we didn't
Mhm.
really talk at all either that much. But when we did, it's always been like great times for me.
Right.
So I'm not sure why fathers don't really talk to their sons or daughters really, because I think that would help more in the process of growing up better. Kind of, I don't know.
Yeah. I think it's just the way they were raised. They don't want to show weakness in any way. And
Right.
I know my dad's dad couldn't even say I love you. It never came out of his mouth. And so my dad made sure that he was always saying that to us because he didn't want us to be the same way. But I think that was just the way they would grow up. You're not supposed to show any weakness at all. And sometimes that means, not asking how people are, or not spending a lot of time with your kids because you're raised that you're supposed to be a support or a provider. And so your job is to make sure that they're safe and that you're providing money for the household. And that's your job. And things have changed quite a bit, over the last few decades. That's not the thing anymore for most people. Now we're all supposed to be, we're supposed to have a bit better balanced lives now. But I think for our dads and their dads, that was the issue, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. That's just something that you didn't talk about, and maybe even really downplayed it big time. Maybe like I said, suck it up.
Yeah,
suck it up and move on. You're feeling
yeah. Take a lap.
Yeah. Rub some dirt in it.
Yeah. Walk it off, boy, or something.
Yeah, walk it off.
Walk it off.
Well, walk it off with some baby.
I heard that on the ball field way too many times.
Yeah.
So, your episodes end with your reading of your fan mail in the chamber of comments section.
Right.
Have you ever received a comment that literally saved someone's life, or like email, or they ask you, your opinion, and you gave them the right answer that they were looking for, and it literally saved their life?
Yeah, one. But I didn't email them. They were listening, and something in the show, and I don't remember exactly what it was. I'm not sure they even told me, but they were contemplating suicide that night, and something in the episode, probably because if people don't listen, then they don't know. At the end of each episode, I throw in a Bible verse and a final thought, which is usually an inspirational, uplifting thought. At least I try to find those.
Right.
Something, I think it's somewhere in that particular area at the very end of the episode caught that person's heart, and they emailed me the next day, and pretty much the email just started with, "You saved my life last night." And kind of told me what they were going through. And I won't go into it, mostly because I really don't remember too much. I was just floored when I read it. I would never have thought. That's kind of where I started getting the idea of this as a ministry.
Sure. That
when stuff like that started happening, and the responsibility of this, was on my shoulders. You're not just an entertainer anymore. Yeah, too bad, so sad. You may not have signed up for this, but that's what you got now. But yeah, I think I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought as to where I was going with that. They sent me the email, and that's right. And I don't really remember it all that much because it just floored me. That's what it was. That a podcast about werewolves and ghosts and unexplained mysteries and disappearing people and shadow people and all that other crazy stuff,
sure,
most of which I don't even believe in. I just love telling the stories,
right?
But to imagine that a podcast like that would end up having such an impact on somebody's life that they would actually choose to live rather than die. just after hearing an episode. To this day, it still floors me. I still don't know. That had to be a God thing, because I really don't understand how that happened. But yes, it did happen once.
Wow.
I've had a lot of people say that it's changed their lives in some way, because they were able to go out and they found those resources that I tell people about, and they went to go take care of those, or they just think the podcast itself is some way relaxing or whatever. It gives them the juice they need for each day for some strange reason. We all need different things, I guess. So I've had those kinds of emails of people thanking me for what I do, but yeah, I actually did get one email, somebody saying that I saved their life, I guess, for lack of better words.
Which is wild, because, I mean, and we've all seen the pictures, or the pictures, of people at concerts, and they have their signs, and it's like, your music saved my life.
Mm-hmm.
So to see like podcasting as much as it has exploded within the last, what would you say, 10 years, I think.
12 years probably.
Yeah. I mean, it's been
really big in the last 5 to 7. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It's just, it's exploded. So now something that can be done in a, in a room with a microphone and a computer could literally keep somebody.
Yeah, it's not, we are exactly where it would happen.
Right.
Yeah, I never thought of it that way, but so many musicians actually do have those stories, right. And they're probably just as floored.
Oh, sure.
They probably say, I don't understand. I mean, that song was personal to me when I wrote it. I understand that, but it's amazing that would actually apply to you and have that big of an impact on your life. Yeah. That's got to be humbling. At least I would hope that would be humbling for them as well. Yeah, I hadn't even thought about that aspect. I guess everybody who's in the public light in some way are going to have stories like that. I'm sure there are football players that inspired little kids to better their lives in some way.
Right.
Yeah. So you guys obviously have a responsibility now too. You have people who are listening to your podcast, watching your YouTube channel. It is YouTube, right?
Right.
That's what I thought. Okay. Yeah. So they're going to see Blake and James. Have you received those types of?
I haven't personally.
Okay. Yeah. Give it time.
But that doesn't mean that they're not listening and receiving what we say.
Oh, absolutely. In fact, if in a genre like this, in a topic that you guys talk about, if you have people watching YouTube and you're seeing views over there, that's because those people need to hear what you guys are saying.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. This isn't something you just dial into on YouTube for entertainment purposes.
Right.
So I need to kill a couple hours. Let's go hear James and Blake talk about depression. That'll be fun. No. So yeah, you're touching people's lives if they're listening and watching what you guys are doing. So kudos to you.
Thank you. Thank you for the encouragement there. I have a question. I'm gonna skip back, James, just a little bit up top. I didn't realize it, but I skipped right over it. Do you have like a go-to, like we just mentioned, there's artists that have songs that they might have been personal to them. Do you have like a go-to song or a go-to album or anything whenever you're just having one of those days where you just can't seem to pull yourself out of whatever funk it is that you're in?
There's a few that so many people are not going to know who these are, because I spent so much of my broadcast career the last 30 years in Christian radio. So a lot of it's Christian music, and people are going to say, who the heck are you talking about? But there was a band by the name of Idle Cure, IDLECURE. And I'll just ask my Amazon Echo Dot device to, I'm trying very hard not to say her name, but I'll ask the device to play Idle Cure, and that'll brighten me up quite a bit. That was during a time in my life when things were actually going well, when I had the upward slope of my life at that point, and my life was getting turned around. So there's a lot of good emotions and feelings that come with that particular music.
Right.
That's the way it's going to be for most people. I mean, if I'm saying Idle Cure, hopefully you're not going to go find their music and say, okay, this is going to be the answer for me. It's going to make me happy. It doesn't work that way. Right. It's going to be your own personal stuff. But that's one thing that I'll throw in. Also Brian Duncan. who another Christian artist.
Right.
He's got an album called Anonymous Confessions of a Lunatic Friend, which is a awesome title for an album. And every song on there is just whacked out bizarre. He's just a wild man, and it's such a fun album that I'll throw that in and get going. So, but there's also the rock stuff that I grew up with in high school. I'll throw in Night Ranger or something like that, just because I love it. Yeah. I love that if it's got that crunch to it.
Right.
I love Night Ranger. And so I'll throw in their stuff, and that's another reason that I lost my voice. Though I kept trying to sing like them. I got to be careful when I pick up. See, all of this music that I love is stuff that I should not be singing if I want to protect my voice. And of course, that's the stuff that I want to listen to. Of course,
80s metal, man. It just like everyone sang at such a high register, and just
I know.
Oh, yeah, it's unreal. Listening to it now, I mean, and it hasn't changed that much. There's a lot of bands, especially in the heavy music scene, which is something that me and James have been really involved with over the past few years. There's a lot of guys that are still trying to hit that really high pitch, and I don't get it. I just I don't understand that part of it.
It's not as popular nowadays either, is it? Nowadays, it's more of the baritone voice, like for lack of better words, like a Nickelback, that not necessarily that band, but about that range of vocals where there's a little bit of a grit to them, but they're not the high pitched, high tenors that we loved from the 70s and early 80s, like from Warrant and Foreigner and all those guys. Those guys could hit some notes.
Right.
Yeah, because we have bands like Disturbed and Godsmack, and more bands are coming out with like they kind of like growl more, the bass tone.
Guttural. Yeah,
right. You got your scream growls as in Cannibal Corpse and 6 Feet Under and all that is the good stuff.
Yeah.
I should probably, now that I think about it, now that we're talking about this, I should probably go back into music now, because now I've got the voice that would actually be marketable.
Death metal.
In a world where one man. Yeah, I can do it. I can figure it out.
I'm glad we were an inspiration for you.
Yes.
Get back into music there.
Yes. Be looking for my new single, Werewolf Girlfriend, coming very soon.
There you go. $6 million. Yeah. Just from that title alone, right?
That's right.
That's all it takes.
So as we mentioned before in the introduction, you're a professional voice artist with audiobooks that you've recorded. Have you ever thought about writing your own stories?
No, I'm not a writer. I really admire people who can write. It's just not my forte.
Right.
I was doing good trying to write songs when I was trying to do that. Trying to write a book and I don't have really any stories to share. I really don't have those paranormal experiences. So for my podcast, I wouldn't be writing for, because I really don't. I don't know what I would write about.
Right.
It's sad to say it now. Suddenly, I'm going to get depressed now talking about it. But I've had no life. I got into radio in 1990, and when I'm doing something, it's like I pour all of myself into that, and I have no other life outside of it. So when I started doing radio, that's all I was doing. I was in the production room, putting together commercials and trying to figure out different ways to do different voices and stuff like that. And it's just never stopped. So I really don't have anything that people would be able to relate to, I think, in order to write a book. But I have considered taking the stories that people send me and putting them into a book. I've thought maybe about possibly doing that someday.
Yeah.
But that's about as far as and I have permission to do that. The website, if you send it in, the website makes sure to say, hey, is it okay if we do that, in the future? Okay. And I put that in there just on the off chance that I do it. But I'm so stinking busy. I don't even know why I'd even try right now. Yeah.
Yeah, because I was like, okay, so you do podcasting, you do voiceovers, you do everything else. How do you sleep? I mean, do you sleep well?
No. There's something else with the depression. I need 12 hours of sleep every day.
Right. Have you ever just like took a whole day off and just tried to sleep all day long and try to catch up on it?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Those
are needed,
Yeah, every week I have to take at least one day, and it's just we call it like a brain shut-off day.
Yeah.
And it's usually Saturdays that I'll just sleep in as late as I want. I'll wander into the family room and watch Stargate SG-1 or something that I've seen a million times, but I love the show and I'll just continue to watch it over and over because it doesn't require any thought.
Right.
I just want to shut my mind off. The phone is on Do Not Disturb. I'll sit there and maybe have some pizza and a Coke or something. And in fact, Robin and I, we don't have kids. We decided that wasn't the direction we wanted to go because we're both so selfish and with our time. She wants to have alone time. I want to have alone time. So usually on Saturdays when I'm shutting my brain off, we don't even see each other. She goes to the basement and starts playing on her own computer and, blaring music down there. And I just have to turn everything off for the entire day. When I engage, later in the evening and the next day and I'm fine again. But as busy as I am and as many brain cells as I burn throughout the week, I think I need that one day of rejuvenation. And Sunday's usually a light day. We can do our church and stuff like that. And then I'll slowly get back into the groove of getting back into the work week. But yeah, sleep is something that does come that I right at this precise moment, I need about 12 hours a night.
Because me, dude, because I watch movies and TV shows over and over and over again. Because it happened, and like you said, it's not, you don't have to think about it much,
Right.
You can just watch it with the ease of your, of your day.
Yeah, I'm so busy. There are movies in my queue for Netflix and Amazon Prime, all these other. There are things that I want to watch someday, but I'm too busy to watch them. So you would say, well, then take Saturday. That's your day to watch them. No, that's my day to turn my mind off so I don't have to pay attention.
Yeah.
So I've got to. Yeah, I have no idea what the storyline is for Godzilla versus Kong. I don't know who's going to win.
That's a great movie, dude.
No spoilers.
No.
No, that one was one I knew was going to be brainless right from the get-go. So I went ahead and put that one on. I knew there would be no brain cells watching that one.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned HBO Max because tomorrow is going to be the first Mortal Kombat day of official release. Yeah.
Are you guys gamers?
Yeah, very much so. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. That's not my bag. When people ask me, "Hey, are you on Twitch?" No. I sometimes get a twitch in my eye, and usually it's just because I'm tired. But that's about it.
Right.
Yeah. I know gaming is such a big thing. Gamers are doing their own podcasts.
Yeah.
It's insane. People are. I didn't understand when they went to YouTube. When they first started doing that and they started playing the games on YouTube and you were watching somebody playing a game.
Right.
I thought that was the stupidest thing ever. Why you could be playing the game yourself? Why are you watching somebody playing it? You can't even interact with that person.
Right.
And yet it was huge. And now Twitch is a big thing and everybody's, I guess I'm just too old. I don't get the gaming thing.
Well, see, for me, watching other people play is more like a relaxing environment. You're totally.
That's turning the brain cells off because you've been there before. You've seen it numerous times. Oh yeah, I guess I could see that.
Yeah.
And I know some people would probably do it for educational purposes. They'll watch somebody and try to figure out, so that's how they got past this particular level or whatever. But I can understand that. I can understand that aspect of it. But just sitting back and just watching the videos all day long, I could never do that. Yeah.
It's funny you mentioned
same here with me. People have asked me, "Hey, are you going to go on tour? Are you going to go to some city and do the podcast live?"
Oh, that's
Why would you come out and see a guy reading from a script? Like, here I am in front of a microphone, and then she came into the room and saw the cat who was inside out, and she. Why would you go to somebody and pay money in most cases to watch somebody on stage just sitting in a chair with a microphone in front of them read from a script, and people want that
because then they would say it's Darren Marler.
You know what? It's still me when you're listening to the podcast too. I think I'm doing well enough just to do the live stream once a year on Halloween, doing the live video. That's enough for me. And even then, I still don't understand why people tune in. I still don't get it.
Well, see, for me,
It doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, see, for me, I like to think of the bigger picture. You know, they want to meet you live. They want to shake your hand. They tell you, "Oh my God, your podcast saved my life for the better." You know.
Well, I could go and do that, and I don't have to tell any stories. I can just, hey, I'm going to be at the corner of Main and Second next week. Come on over and tell me how much you love me.
Right.
That's true. That's true. Never thought about it that way. So yeah.
That's what we do.
I think that'd be the end of my career if I actually started promoting that. That would. I'm sure I get a lot of angry tweets out there about that kind of stuff.
I don't think so.
So, back to something music related. I know that you've got episodes that are coming out daily. And so please forgive me if you've already told this story on Weird Darkness at some point, but do you recall the story of the man that built a guitar out of his uncle's skeleton?
Bones?
No.
Or are you aware of it?
That's a new one. Excuse me. I don't think I've ever even heard of that one.
Yeah.
So there's a story of a man. I believe it was, if I'm remembering the article correctly, the guy's uncle died in like the 90s in Greece, and apparently in Greece they don't do a lot of cremations over there. So like this guy like acquired some land or something like that, and to where his uncle's bones were buried on this land. So he just kind of
write this down.
He inherited it, and he turned the skeleton into a guitar, a fully functioning,
and it works.
And it works.
Yeah.
It is the most unreal thing, and honestly, the most heavy metal thing I've ever heard.
I bet. Yeah.
But the most disturbing thing you will ever see. I mean,
also very disturbing.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I'm gonna when we're done here, I'm gonna look that up and see what you're talking about. Because if there's a story behind that, then that might actually be good for the podcast.
It would be interesting. And I remember you did an episode. It was a music themed episode, I believe, a few months ago, and you told a lot of stories of behind bands that maybe had like paranormal encounters or things like that, or even surrounded like murders or what have you. So
right.
I was listening for it because I was like, I wonder if he's going to talk about the skeleton guitar. And I didn't hear it, and I was like, he had to have talked about that at some point. I know it. So
no, that's a whole new one on me.
Oh man!
So you're skilling me. I appreciate it.
Looking forward to that episode if you ever do it. That'll be really cool. I've been a big fan of yours for a long time. So that when I first heard about the story, I was like, oh, that's got to be a Weird Darkness episode.
Yeah.
If it's not.
Now, there are a lot of stories that I've told that I just don't remember because I've been doing this for 5 years. Imagine. And, each episode has an average of like 4 stories. So, right. Yeah, but something that unique, I'm sure I would remember.
Oh, yeah.
Actually, you know what? I got some pictures up here. If you want to see them right now, I can show you them.
Oh, yeah, James.
Oh, yeah, I'd love to.
If you got a picture of it.
Yeah, totally, because this is going to be amazing for you to...
This is great for our YouTube channel
too. Yeah, it's this guy right here, and that's his uncle Bones.
Oh my gosh,
it's unreal.
And they're real bones.
Yeah,
real 100% bone from his uncle.
Yeah.
So he's using his uncle's rib cage and spinal column and pelvis.
Right, and his hips. Let me try to get you a better picture.
They said Elvis the pelvis back when he was
right. Yeah.
When he was controversial. They had no idea this was coming.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because it's just out of this world. I've never even heard of it before. He said that he wants his uncle to be like keep on rocking in the just out from
afterlife.
Yeah.
Yeah. What, does that become a family heirloom at that point? What happens to it when you retire or when you pass away? I mean, where does that go?
Yeah.
See, it's in Greece, so I think they have like
hang it up on your
yeah.
Right.
That's what you do.
That's what it's all.
If you want a haunted house, that's how you get a haunted house.
Right.
Yeah. But apparently the uncle like Poison and Ran and Motley Crue and it's old like 80s metal bands.
Yeah.
Mm.
And I guess he just brought, because I guess his uncle said, when I want to be a guitar when I die or something.
Mm.
That's who would think of.
It's an odd last wish too.
Yeah, it's kind of weird,
Yeah.
But Lemmy from Motorhead had his ashes in with like gun bullets.
Oh yeah.
So that I don't get it. I don't get it, man.
And you say it sounds good.
Yeah.
It's a fully functioning, working guitar.
Yeah, I can understand that it would work. I just
Yeah.
you look at that, you wouldn't think it's going to sound all that great, but
it'll sound good if you're a good player. Let me put it.
Yeah,
perfect for death metal.
Yeah, that's the most appropriate genre. Yeah.
Huh.
Being dealing with your podcast, do you have any favorite episodes, or is one like extremely special to you in some kind of form?
I get this question a lot, and it's a difficult question to answer because I'm very much even to myself. What have you done for me lately? I always want to do better on the next podcast, and then I want to do better on the next one. But there is a couple that are special to me. One is actually, you had mentioned that it's an award-winning podcast, and I won an award for my rendition of Edgar Allan Poe's Edgar Allan Poe's The Telltale Heart. I did that. It's something that I'd always wanted to record, and I just never got around to doing it. So I decided one day to do it, and there was some contest going on for fictional podcast storytellers. I think I'll just throw it in to see what happens.
Sure.
And ended up becoming. I didn't win, but I came close. It was like a runner-up or something along those lines. So that made me feel pretty good. And that's been pretty popular since then. But the one that probably means the most to me is the episode called The Last Step. And I created it probably 3 years ago. I got news that my dad was in the hospital. He's fine now, fortunately, but we almost lost him. In fact, we did lose him for a couple of minutes.
Wow.
But so I had to run to Texas, and while I was in Texas, I knew I still needed to work. I was working for a radio station at the time too. It wasn't just a podcast that I needed to keep up with, because I knew people would understand if I didn't, post at that point. But I had other things that I had to take care of, so I brought my equipment with me. And there was a story that my dad wrote when he was in college called The Last Step. And he shared it with me back when I was in junior high or whatever. And the story has always stuck with me. I always thought it was just a great story. It would make a great, it wouldn't necessarily be a great movie because it was a short story. There really wasn't much to it, but it was a movie in my head. I was picturing every little scene that was happening and the emotions that went with it. And so my dad had shared that with me, like in paper. He actually handed me the actual college paper that he had turned in, which he got like a C+ on. The teacher actually said, "You're a bit morbid." I love this. She wrote it right there on the front page. It's like, that's probably why I liked it. But while he was in the hospital, we weren't allowed to go in. They put him into a coma, and I guess in this particular type of coma, with his health conditions, they didn't want us even talking to him in the coma or in the same room, because apparently that could even trigger some sort of thing in his brain I don't remember. All I remember, because I was going to read to him or something, right. Just because I hear people can sometimes hear if they're in a coma. They said, no, you can't be in here at all. So I went back to their house where we were staying while he was in the hospital. And I decided, well, I'm just going to tell everybody what's going on in the podcast, and then I'll tell them the last step. And that became my favorite. It's nowhere near popular when it comes to everybody's listening to it or anything, but because of the personal aspect of it, it meant a lot to me. And that was also one of those times, because I was open in the podcast and telling people what was going on. That's when some other people said, "Hey, how you doing? What's going on?" That kind of people cared. So, but my dad came out of it just fine, and we still have him.
Yeah.
But when I'm doing archive episodes now, I bring back old episodes on the weekends for my weekend archives, and a couple of times now I've been able to bring The Last Step back, and it just kind of reminds me of how precious life is.
Yeah.
That we almost lost my dad. We thought we were going to lose him. We had to, he was in Dallas, Texas, and we're up here in Chicagoland, and we bolted down there as fast as possible, thinking that was my last opportunity to see my dad.
Right.
And so every time that episode comes back up, I will delete old episodes because I've used them 2 or 3 times in the archives, but not this one. This one will always be there. And I'll always bring it back just because it means so much to me. And one of these days, my dad is going to be taken home, and it's still going to mean so much to me because he was such a huge influence on my life in some of the things that I love. He was the one that loved taking us out on Halloween. I remember, this has nothing to do with that particular episode, but just memories of my dad. Well, I think this is part of why I like the creepy stuff. My birthday is November 1st, so it's the day after Halloween. So every time we celebrated my birthday, there was always creepy stuff up all over the place. But I remember my dad, one year we were going trick-or-treating. I was dressed as Mickey Mouse because I have no idea why. I would never choose that as a costume, not nowadays. But back then, down in the bottom of the street, there was a house that had all the lights going on and the music, and they were really scary. And they had a guy that was running back and forth in the front yard. I think he was trying to pretend to be a werewolf or something. And I was scared to death. I would not go to that house. I would not walk up there. And my dad said, "You know what? They're just guys. They're going to be fine." I don't know how he did it. Either the neighbors who were living there just understood naturally how they should react, or my dad told them. But he told me, go up there and just, scare them. I'm in a Mickey Mouse costume. It's not the most scary thing in the world. But I walked up to the door, I rang the doorbell, I went, and they legitimately acted scared. The werewolf or whatever he was, I don't remember what character he was, but he just screamed and ran like he was peeing his pants. I remember that now, that my dad, he embraced that dark stuff and everything else. He's have fun with it, Darren. And I think ever since then, I've loved doing this kind of stuff. So yeah, my dad and I, we're really close, obviously. So that's back to The Last Step. That's going to be, you asked for the favorite. That's a long way around to say, yes, that's the last. Yeah, that's the one that means the most to me.
Now, I remember a few years ago, I don't recall listening to The Last Step, but I do remember a few years ago, you were posting videos, or not videos, you were posting episodes explaining that there was something going on with your dad where he was seeing things like arms. Has that come back up? Is he doing better with that?
Yes. I had completely forgotten about that. Wow. There was a few weeks because people wanted to know. They I don't remember why I mentioned it to begin with, but I did, and people wanted more information. Apparently he was seeing bugs coming out of his arms. But they weren't normal bugs. They would come out and they were black. And then when they came out and they would take flight and they turn white and then they disappear. And after a while, he was the only one that could see the bugs coming out. You could see the spots on his arm. You could see that something was going on there, but he would try to pick at him, and he was, "Ooh, I got him. Open up his finger and it's not there."
Oh, wow.
And so they ended up going to a doctor, and the doctor said, this isn't possible. This isn't what's going on.
Right.
Turns out this is what we think what was happening. But there are some qualifying statements to it, but what we think was happening is he was in the early stages of Parkinson's. And if you have Parkinson's, you can have hallucinations from some of the drugs that you take. That's one of the side effects is hallucinations.
Right.
Because my dad, he would see if I can get this in camera. My dad would in his hand, he would feel like there was something in his hand. So he'd go like this and he'd try to push it down like that.
Keep it down, yeah.
He said, okay, all right. Do you see it? You see the legs? No, Dad, I don't see the legs. It's right there. You can't see the legs. You can't see the legs there? No, Dad, I can't. And so that's where we thought maybe he was starting to hallucinate. And you had to pretty much tell him that every day, that he had start all over again saying, Dad, it's a hallucination. It's not really there. He actually started seeing people in and around him, which is not totally unusual. I hope my family isn't watching this because they don't like us talking about it, but it's not totally unusual for him to see that. He is actually, I don't, but he has had this relationship with the paranormal, I guess, for lack of better words. He has had encounters. And so when he started seeing those people, we started thinking, okay, well, maybe it's him having his paranormal, maybe it's the Parkinson's. The reason that I say that there's some stipulation on that is because his wife, when he was digging him out of his hands, out of his arms, get with the bugs, and they would disappear, she saw them. So that it can't just be him hallucinating unless she's doing it too. And I know mass hysteria is something, but she's not the type of person that would fall into that. She's very matter of fact. She's worked in the medical field all her life. So we don't know how that part came into it, but it just stopped one day. So yeah, in answer to your question, did it ever resolve itself? It did, only in the fact that it just stopped happening. We never did get a straight answer as to what exactly it was causing it. And as for the bumps and everything, it could have been him just with his fingernails trying to dig them out. And of course he's going to leave bumps. Right. So you could have argued it either way. But it doesn't happen anymore. They adjusted his meds and he seems fine now, but he does once in a while still see, I guess for lack of better words, ghosts. Wow. When he was in the hospital, he tells me he really did see the Grim Reaper, Grim Reaper. I said, did he look exactly like what he looks like, everywhere? And he said, well, sort of. I mean, he had his head down. And so it was almost as if there was just a complete nothingness where his face was. But the hood, the robe, the cloak, I guess, or whatever you want to call it. He said it did have that feel. He doesn't remember seeing a scythe, but he remembers the entity being there, and he felt it was death, but it wasn't negative in any way. It was just like, I'm here to escort you. And that was it. But apparently he got a rain check on that. So, but yeah, it's weird. My dad's seen some weird things. This is not a paranormal podcast. I don't know why I'm telling all you this stuff. Let's go back to what you guys talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it. Like I can't speak for James, but I have been into the paranormal. I've been into true crime, horror, whatever, ever since I was a kid. Which is funny because, I say as a kid, making this music related, the Thriller music video, Michael Jackson's Thriller.
Oh God, yeah,
crap out of me as a child.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
The Backstreet Boys music video for Everybody, Backstreet's Back, that scared the crap out of me as a kid. And then so to think that I've evolved from someone who was scared to watch a music video to someone who really enjoys this kind of stuff now is it's interesting. But one of the things that attracted me to Weird Darkness was this, not only the great storytelling and the background music, I think is great. It's very well polished. Everything, you're great. Your voice is great, and it's just it's pleasing to listen to. But just tying it in with you're also a believer. I'm also a believer, and got a lot of crap for enjoying this type of stuff over the years.
I get it. Right. Yeah. Regularly. Yeah.
Right. But it's nice that there are other people out there who enjoy the same type of thing and don't really feel conviction, I guess, is the best way to put it. Like I don't feel conviction for enjoying stories about aliens or ghosts or anything like that. I think it's interesting.
It's fascinating stuff.
It is.
Even if you don't believe in it, I just think it's fascinating.
Right.
Exactly. But yeah, you're right. I had to be very careful. Like I said, I was in Christian radio for 30 years. Mm-hmm. Still am, actually. There's a station that I work for in Chicago that is a Christian station, but they're totally cool with what I do.
Sure.
But before, some of the owners of the other stations that I've worked for, if they were to find out that I was doing Weird Darkness, I would have lost my job.
Oh yeah. Probably.
They're saying there's no way you can't be playing with that stuff, but I didn't have as you said, the conviction. I was not convicted against it. Some people are and probably should be. Yeah. And I think it's the same thing as people who maybe want to smoke marijuana or who want to drink. Mm-hmm. Some people can handle it, some people can't.
Right.
And that's going to be an individual choice.
Right.
So for me personally, even telling the stories about all of this stuff, which granted, some of it is pretty evil. Telling the stories is one thing. I'm not endorsing it at all. And I avoid stories of here's how you cast a spell in order to conjure the demon, such and such. No, I'm not going that far. I'm not, this is not an educational show when it comes to this is not a how-to podcast.
Right.
So there are lines that I'll draw, but I don't feel convicted about talking about that stuff. And I just find it interesting. And in fact, I think it's probably a good idea that we know that some of that stuff is out there. It keeps life in perspective. Yeah. And it's stuff that you probably should keep an eye out for. Mm-hmm. That's because you don't want to be pulled in by it. So in some ways, I guess it could be educational, but yeah, it's weird being believers like you and I are, and people are going to give us a hard time that we're not supposed to like this stuff.
Right.
How can you watch horror movies? That's just so non-Christian because they're so fun.
Too,
right.
My mom will tell you she is not very tech savvy at all. But my mom has always enjoyed horror movies, and it's so funny because she's a very sweet, devout Christian woman, and she can tell you everything about Jason Voorhees that you want to know.
Yeah,
but it's
I love your mom, dude.
Your mom must be awesome.
It is
that's
so
great.
Funny, but she's not. So, like I said, she's not tech savvy. But whenever I was young, whenever my sisters were, middle school, teenage years, or whatever, and these movies are coming out, she was able to figure out a way to record if they were on TV. She was able to record them on a VHS tape and somehow figure out a way to edit out all the either really brutal stuff or like sex scenes or things like that. She was able to get those things edited out so that we could watch them.
What's left for all if you're watching a Friday the 13th film?
Yeah.
Right.
If she removes all of the blood and violence, what's left? You got the intro and outro credits. That's about it, right?
And I don't know.
And you wondered, why are these movies only 3 minutes long?
Yeah.
Yeah, she's probably responsible for why I'm into.
That's awesome.
That I'm into, but at the same time, being a very devout Christian woman, and now she has her moments. There's some things where she's like, I don't know, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to watch that.
Mm-hmm.
But her leading by example, I guess, is the best way for me to put it.
Yeah,
and showing me that you can, and then. It's okay to enjoy this kind of stuff too, and then of course, Weird Darkness has been a big part of that as well. So,
I'm with your mom. There are a couple of things that I can't watch. The Exorcist is one. After I've done it once, that's enough for me.
Yeah,
there are certain scenes in there that I just do not need in my head ever again.
Sure. Oh yeah.
And another one, and I don't know why it bothered me so much, but The Devil's Advocate with Keanu Reeves and Al Pacino.
Yeah. Yes.
I don't know why it bothered me so much, but I felt like I needed to take a shower in holy water after watching it. And so those are two films that I just will not watch ever again. Everything else seems to be okay so far. But then again, I'm not a real big horror fan anyway. I love telling the stories. I'm not really much into consuming them.
Yeah.
So the movies and stuff like that, especially the slasher stuff, like the Friday the 13th, it just doesn't appeal to me. Give me give me a taut thriller, and then I'm in on it. Give me an Alfred Hitchcock.
Yeah, that's more my wife's speed. She loves some Alfred Hitchcock, or any type of thriller,
suspense and stuff like that. Yeah,
she really enjoys those. So that's usually what our Halloween movies are. But so what, if you had someone that came to you and they recently discovered that they are suffering from depression, whether it be a mild or a severe case, what is something that you would say to them? Being someone who I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to call you an expert on depression, because you have so many resources available, and you know what you're talking about. Like there's no doubt about it. So,
well, I think the first thing on the list I would tell them is that they need to be listening to When Words Fail, Music Speaks.
Yeah.
So we'll make sure, if you need to make sure that Blake and James are always in your ears.
Well, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Even though I've never listened to your show before today.
Oh, come on.
But I will be. You guys reached out to me. I didn't know that you guys were out there, so it's great. I'm actually going to be going to your YouTube channel. I wanted to see what you guys are up to. But
well, thank you.
Thank you a lot. Appreciate it.
Well, it might be something that I can actually tell people on the podcast too. Say, hey, you know what? These guys gave me some time on their show. You ought to give it a watch, and you might want to subscribe. So that actually. But anyway, if somebody were to approach me and say, hey, I think I am depressed. Number one, if you think you are, then you probably are. I don't think there's ever any doubt, that you are depressed if you've come to the point that you're even asking about it. There are those online things that I do have on my Hope in the Darkness page, weirddarkness.com, that I would probably try to plug them into. But the biggest thing that helped me was going to the doctor. Even if the doctor really can't help you, they can point you somewhere that probably can. You say that I'm an expert. I'm an expert only in my depression. I'm not an expert in yours. And we all are going to be different. We're going to have different causes for it. We're going to have different ways that we respond to it. But a doctor can walk you through some of your options, and it may or may not be meds. It might be some type of therapy. And you don't have to. And just because you have depression doesn't mean that you're going to be on meds. So if you're against meds, then don't let it stop you from talking to a doctor, because there are other things that can be done. It's just, for me personally, that's what worked. But I do recommend going to the doctor. That also forces you to start talking about it. Even if fortunately you have, doctor-patient confidentiality there, so they're not going to tell anybody. So they're a safe person to talk to. But if you start getting into the habit of talking about it, you're going to find that there are others around you that probably deal with it as well, a lot more than you think. Because they're not talking about it either. And in the process, you might actually be helping them as well, because you're giving them somebody to talk to.
Right.
So if somebody were to walk up to me and say, I think this is what I'm dealing with, doctor first, but at the same time, reach out and speak with others who are dealing with it too. But make sure you get a doctor's appointment. That's why I asked you, Blake, whether or not you'd actually been, because I think it's important. You're not to the point that it's impeding on your life, which is great. So if it was, then I'd be insistent at that point.
Right. Well, thank you so much for the shout out, because when Blake and I started this podcast, we just want everybody not to feel like we do when we are depressed. I mean, if you just sit through one of our shows just for like an hour or however long our show is, that's great. We're so glad to help. But like you said before, me and Blake, you are not actual trained doctors. We're not. We're not.
Right.
But we have no idea what that individual needs. So so I thought you hit it right on the nose when you said go see a doctor first.
Yeah, I wish it was so easy just to say, hey, here's what you need to do. go do this one thing and that's going to be your answer.
Yeah.
It would be so great if that was, I wouldn't have to worry about telling people about it on the podcast. That just click the button on the website and there, that'll solve your problem.
Right.
If it was that easy. But yeah, I think that's another reason that people don't get help is because we're all affected differently, and it could be caused by different things, and one solution isn't going to work for one person when it does work for another. It's too complicated to take care of by yourself. You have to have other people to help you out through it.
Right.
Yeah. So your show has grown into more than just a podcast, because it's really well thought out and published. Because we see it as a community, where would you like to see Weird Darkness go from here?
Actually, I'm working on it right now. I am in talks with and I don't know if it's going to happen or not. And I'm trying to keep the attitude. It's the final thought that I had the other day on the podcast, actually. If you're to the point where you care or don't care if it happens, like if you don't care if it happens or not, that's a powerful place to be.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to get myself onto, but I'm talking to a radio syndicator, and there's a possibility that if I was to be picked up, that I would start with maybe 30 radio stations that would be airing Weird Darkness.
Nice.
And kind of go from there. Being a radio guy for as long as I have been, that's something that's always in the back of your mind, going saying wouldn't it be cool if?
Sure.
And I've tried it a couple of times in the past with the Darren Marler radio show and stuff like that. The Daily Dose of Weird News was syndicated for a short while, but that's just something I pre-recorded and sent out, and it was 3 minutes long. Weird Darkness though would be a completely different animal. Because it'd be a 2-hour show.
Right.
And again, back to the responsibility. I would be telling people during the show, not just the stories, but also there's help for your depression. And here's where you can go. And I'll also be able to do my fundraisers. Like when I do, twice a year, I do for Food for the Poor. And I raise money for that. And I'd be able to do that on the radio as well. And it's cool that it'd be on the radio, but it's also good. It'd also be a lot more work. So I'm still kind of debating whether or not I want it to happen. And I'm just trying to keep that I don't care if it happens attitude, but who knows? Like you started off with, people have compared the show to Art Bell and some other things, which he's the godfather of late nights. No one's going to beat Art Bell ever again.
Right.
But to be, compared to that, and the radio guys that I've talked to, they think it's time for something like what I'm doing. They think it's a good time for it to be picked up by a syndicator. They've listened to it. They really like what they're hearing, and they're actually sending me a pitch this week as to, here's what it would take financially in order to make it happen, because there would be money coming out of my pocket in order to get onto the network.
Right.
And then hopefully in response, people would start listening to the podcast if they hear the radio show, and maybe that would help bring the income to kind of pay it off. So it'd be a huge financial investment if I do it. I might be relying on my Patreon members a little bit more than I currently, but that's what I'd like to see.
Yeah.
I'd like to see just that many more people listening more than anything else. I wouldn't change my life right now if I could. I absolutely love not only what I do, but where I do it. I mean, I'm in my house. If I get too big, I don't want to have to leave my house and go do it elsewhere. So, and then I don't think it's going to be a live show. It could be a live show on the radio if we worked it out that way. I don't know. I really don't know. More people listening, more people getting help with the depression is something that I'd really like to see. I'd like the conversation to be more open and be a lot more common.
Yeah.
And that's what I hoping to do. That's why I do the Hope in the Darkness campaign each year too. In the month of October, that's our anniversary month. We launched in October of 2015. And so I just kind of use that as an opportunity to raise money and awareness for depression, as well as the podcast. So and raise funds.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So,
if someone has been listening to this current episode of our show and maybe they've never heard of Weird Darkness before, and they are now considering themselves weirdos, do you have any special events coming up for the weirdos? Do you have any watch parties?
When is this airing? When are we going to be on YouTube?
Probably next Wednesday. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. In that case, we have a weirdo watch party coming up May 1st. Which those are always fun. You just go to the website and we're watching a B horror movie with a horror host.
Mm-hmm.
This time, however, it's not a B horror movie. Usually they're the worst things ever.
Right.
And they're just so bad that they're fun, which is why we do them. And we're in the chat room talking back and forth, dissing the actors and the sound design and all that other stuff. But this time we're actually watching the 1922 Nosferatu.
Yes.
It's actually a true classic that we'll be doing this time, but that's going to be 9 p.m. Hold on a second. Let me double check here real quick, but let's see. You go to the Weirdo Watch Party page at weirddarkness.com and 9 p.m. Central Time.
Okay.
On Saturday, May 1st. That's what it's going to be.
Perfect.
So yeah, that'll be a couple hours of fun because we'll still have the horror host. Drac and Countess Karita are going to be doing that. You can listen to the radio show actually does already exist, but it's only on a couple of streaming stations. If they want to go check that out, they just go to the calendar page on the website, and you can see in the weekends where it when it airs, and just click the links in there. You can listen to the radio show as it airs. Doing that. I don't know if there's anything major coming up. I don't have anything planned. I really wanted to do a halfway to Halloween live stream.
Yeah.
That would have been fun. And I just did not get around to planning that in time. But I don't know. Maybe well, when is halfway to Halloween technically? Do you guys know?
In October, so it's got to be July, maybe.
November, December, January, February, March. It would have been April 30th. April 30th would be 6 months.
Okay.
So
that's a tricky one too, because it's 30th versus the 31st.
Right. Yeah. I'm not thinking about the actual days. I'm not thinking like there's only 28 days in February, so you got to minus those for the next month. No, I'm not. I'm just thinking months. So I think I guess May 1st would actually be your halfway to Halloween event.
There you go. Okay.
Man, now I actually have to work. You got to put something together. Dang it.
Well,
I'm so sorry I did this interview with you guys now.
I do have a music question about horror music. For Darren, Blake and I's favorite band of all time is the Misfits, right?
Okay.
So you have the Misfits, Calabrese, and all these other horror rock bands or punk bands. Who do you gravitate towards when you want to listen to some Halloween music for fun?
I don't. I've never really gotten into that type of music.
Okay.
I like what I use in the podcast. That's Midnight Syndicate is one of the artists, the bands, I guess if you want to call them that, and Shadows Symphony is the other one. You can get their music online. That's about as close to liking horror music just for enjoyment that I get.
Yeah.
That's never really been. I do like that. I take it back though. I love Danny Elfman. Some of the stuff he's done for like the Batman motion picture, Beetlejuice, the theme for Scrooged. It all, even his Christmas thing just had this dark tinge to it. I really like his kind of stuff. So I have once in a while, tossed in like a best of Danny Elfman or asked the Amazon Echo to play Danny Elfman and just see what pops up.
Right.
So yeah, not really a rock band, horror band, but he definitely has some dark tones to him.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
because Batman is my my most favorite. Besides Superman, but but Batman, when the thing came on, you could tell it's something serious because it's dark and kind of cryptic, kind of, you know.
The music, yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it was great. So are you looking forward to the next incarnation of Batman with Patterson as Batman?
He
You looking
did
forward to that?
up acting, but a lot of people give him crap because of that Twilight vampire, you know.
Right.
A lot of crap, but I think he can pull it off for sure.
After seeing some of the images,
Yeah,
and some of the trailers, it's like, okay, yeah, I can see him doing this. The younger, closer to the year one Batman,
right.
you know, where he's just getting started. And he see the great thing about him getting started this young is he could be like the next, you know, Hugh Jackman Wolverine. Just do it for years and years. To start from young Batman, work all the way up to Dark Knight Returns Batman, where he has to come back out of retirement in order to kick somebody's butt. If he's smart, he'd play his career right and do it that way.
Oh yeah.
So I'd love to see Batman grow and get older and older and older over the years. I think that'd be awesome.
That would be great, and especially Michael Keaton's coming back. He's coming.
That's so weird.
Yeah,
confirmed he's coming back for the Flash. Oh, it's
I have not been a fan of the Super Friends or the Justice League or anything like that.
Oh, I haven't either.
And I hated the movie when it first came out, but Zack Snyder's version now it came out. I thought, oh my gosh, Batman's my least favorite character in this, and he's my favorite superhero of all time. I am so stoked for the Flash movie now.
Yeah,
I never liked that character ever until
the League came out.
Oh yeah. And now just the way he plays. I'm trying. What's his name? Who plays the character?
Ezra Miller. Is that
Ezra Miller?
I think
Ezra Miller. Yeah. He's just phenomenal in the role.
Yes.
He makes it look so effortless, and I'm rooting for him. Like in every scene in Justice League now, it's like go Flash, go, go Barry. So yeah, I actually want to see the Flash movie now. I never would. 2 years ago, I would have told you that'd be the last movie I'd ever want to see. I couldn't care less, but now I really want to. And yeah, now that they're doing the crossover timelines, so you're going to get the different Batmans and. I don't. So we know that Michael Keaton's coming on. Do we know if Ben Affleck is coming back for his incarnation as well?
I think he was confirmed as well to come back, and they're doing a whole multiverse crisscross.
Right. There was I don't know if it was for this or for another project, but was Kevin Conroy going to be Batman as well? We are so geeking out here. There are people watching. What on earth are they talking about?
Oh, a few episodes ago, we did a whole comic book, like it was artists that have created comic books. So I got all my nerding out.
Oh, okay, all right, okay, good. So people know to expect it from you guys. That's good. All right,
little nerd.
But there was a talk that Kevin Conroy, they might actually put him in an outfit, but I thought maybe that was on TV on a TV show instead. But yeah, but when you're dealing with the multiverse, anything's possible.
Anything. And they have confirmed that the Robert Pattinson takes place on Earth 2. So I think they're doing a whole crisscross multiverse thing.
Okay.
And I'm here for it. And also, speaking of music, the Nirvana song in the trailer for that first Batman movie is so haunting and sets the aesthetic for the.
I'm gonna have to go back and watch it now.
Yeah.
Oh man, it's one of my favorite Nirvana songs ever. And
it's something in the way.
Something in the way, and it is just so very creepy sounding.
It is.
It's somber and just sets the tone. Oh, it's gonna be great.
I'll go back and listen and watch that again then.
Oh man, it gave me chills when I first saw it. But
I'd be okay if they brought back Chris O'Donnell and made him Nightwing, just with a whole crossover thing. I'd be fine with that. Even though I absolutely hated the movies that he was in, it'd be so much fun.
Yes, he would be a great Robin, great Nightwing for sure.
Probably a good too.
What's that?
Red Hood.
Red Hood, yeah. If they do a whole Red Hood,
that's right.
Yep.
Yeah, because I was one of the Robins. I think it was.
Yeah, we can't do that in the Robert Pattinson universe yet because he's too young to have a Robin just yet.
Exactly, but it is coming.
There was talk in the original Batman v Superman when you saw the Robin costume that was just sitting there. There was talk that maybe they were going to cover the Jason Todd thing, and if that's the case, then maybe they could later on to pick up the Red Hood and do that. But I don't think that's ever going to pan out now. But
You never know.
I don't know. It depends on if Zack Snyder continues to do the Justice League and everything else for us. If he's in charge of the DC universe, but
well, apparently they filmed a. I'm going off on a tangent here, but apparently they filmed a whole sequence for Batman versus Superman with. Was it Zack Snyder's son playing
Robin?
I think that's what it was.
Really?
And being tortured by Jared Leto, also a lead singer of a band, another music
right
here. But I believe they filmed something like that, and it just got scrapped. But if we could bring back,
I'm surprised it didn't end up in the like in a Justice League cut or something. Just weird. Okay.
Yeah, but if we can bring back,
that would have been interesting to see. I'd love to have seen that because I'd love to see the whole Red Hood. Picked up in the cinematic universe.
Absolutely.
I've seen the movie, the Red Hood that they did, the animated version.
Right.
But yeah, if they were to pick up that storyline in the cinematic universe, that would. Well, then again, how many people really know Jason Todd though? That'd be the problem. Most people who aren't into comics, they're not going to have any idea. They're going to think Dick Grayson.
More than one Robin?
Dick Grayson is Robin. That's he's there's what do you mean there's another Robin? There's actually 4 Robins. What? No.
Right.
Yeah, I think it'd be too confusing for the general audience. Maybe that would be the hard part. They would have to explain it really well.
Yeah.
In some way, or make Dick Grayson Red Hood. They'd have to do one of those two.
Yeah.
In order to make it make sense for the general audience who just doesn't follow comics.
Yeah. My wife is she admits she's a big Marvel fan. So having to explain that whole thing to her when she was like, "There's multiple Robins," it's like, "Oh yeah, there's let me tell you all about that."
Yeah, and then she says, and by the way, there's multiple Thors, and then she had to explain that.
And then Thor was a frog one time.
What?
Get into a whole that thing. That's a whole nother rabbit hole to go.
We really need to grow up, guys. We really need to.
I'm sorry.
We've all turned 13 years old in this conversation.
That's how I live my life as a 13-year-old. Well, this has been so awesome, Darren. Thank you so much for being on here. One thing we want to reach out or tell everybody about, if you or someone is contemplating suicide or having dark thoughts, please, don't wait to reach out to somebody. Do it before it's too late. There's someone waiting by the phone for your call right now at 1-800-273-8255. Or you can go to suicidepreventionlifeline.org to chat with someone online right now. Also, iFred, 7 Cups app, please check out those resources as well. But Darren, where can people find all your social media?
The easiest thing to do is just go to weirddarkness.com. There's a contact social page there, and I've got it all listed there. It takes too long to go through each of them individually. So I just put them all on one page so they're easier to get to.
Yeah.
So yeah, just go to weirddarkness.com. You can find me on my Facebook there, Twitter, YouTube, MeWe, Instagram, all of that stuff.
Are we on TikTok yet?
No.
No.
No, because I'm not 11 years old. No.
I still don't understand that platform for the life of me. I heard it does great stuff for the promo yourself, but I still don't understand it.
I'm not looking for yet another social media network, especially something that's video.
Right.
With this face, no. I mean, I lose listeners doing that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah.
Why don't we bring back MySpace? I'm sure.
No, that's right. Yeah, I'm on MySpace as well. No.
Really, that'd be so cool. We're gonna have to.
I used to have a MySpace a long time ago. I finally deleted it.
Yeah.
I couldn't even delete mine because my email address was fake. So
you couldn't even log in to get rid of it.
Log in to delete it. So it's just.
So does it still exist? Have you tried to log in and check it out, see if it's still there?
I can't remember my password, but it is still there. If you search for
the public profiles there.
Yep, it should still be there. Unfortunately, with all my embarrassing graphics and music.
So now people are jumping to MySpace looking for Blake Mosley.
Right. Good luck. Yeah. Good luck.
You look funny.
Well, James, do you have anything else?
I just really want to thank you for coming on and talk about a deep subject that needs to be talked about. And,
I agree. We all need to be talking about Batman and the Flash. I agree.
Glad we got that.
There needs to be more talk about that.
Right.
So, no, I had a lot of fun, guys. I really appreciate you having me on, and I'll definitely be telling everybody that to check out your podcast as well. If nothing else, they can hear a little bit more about my story that they probably haven't heard on Weird Darkness. So that's actually pretty cool. Yeah.
I mean, let's help each other out.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, thank you so much, Darren.
Well,
This has
thank
been a
you.
huge honor. Yeah, this has been great. Thanks for taking some time to talk to us, and I look forward to the daily episodes. It gets me through my work day. So I'm gonna.
Well, you're keeping me from putting together one right now.
Oh well.
I had just narrated tonight's episode, and I haven't put it together yet, and we had to do this. So
just upload this episode instead, and that way it's done for you. You don't have to do anything. Just bam, and then everybody wins. So
I ought to throw this onto my YouTube channel just to see what kind of reaction we get.
There you go. Yes, sir.
you might lose listeners. I'm sorry. Don't do that.
Yeah, I don't care about YouTube subscribers. That's fine.
There you go.
That's right. I'm not paying any attention over there anyway.
Well, thanks again, Darren. It really means a lot. We appreciate you taking the time to do this, and we'll have to talk again soon.
Yeah, I'd love to do it again.